Let's go. Right, so welcome back to the Itso podcast. As you can see, we've taken it back to 2020 COVID times and doing a remote version, but we're also testing out some graphics because we might not be able to always meet up every single day. We both have busy lives. Got a good topic list going on today. We're going to start off with what everyone's doing now. Unfortunately, I think our recording of our pre-season predictions has been lost. I tried to look for it on our podcasts. But what we can do instead is we're going to do a tier list. Everyone loves a tier list. So we're going to go in whatever order is on here. A lot of teams we don't really particularly care about. I'll try to remind ourselves about what's going on. Say hi to everyone, Julian.
Hi everyone, good to have you back, or good to have us back. However you want to hear that, but yeah, good to be back.
So we'll go. Actually, you know what? We'll do this structured. We'll start from the bottom, and now we're here. So we'll start with Sheffield United, ending up with 16 points, 3 wins in the season, and a minus 69 giggity, minus 69 goal difference. How would you rank this season, Julian? Do we disagree? Do we need to think about it?
I think the worst ever team was Derby. So Sheffield United have done a little bit better, but that's a lot of goals to concede. 104 and only 35 goals scored. So wow, yeah, I would rate that one of the worst seasons.
I can only give them an F, really. I don't really feel like there's much.
I can't even tell the last game they won and who it was against.
Right. We don't have a lot of time to dilly-dally. It's late in the evening. It's Friday night.
Even
we're both tired.
Beat them. Jeez. Okay.
Shut up. So 19th, we've got Burnley. Now, I feel like if you get relegated, you're near the bottom of the tier list, no matter how good you did.
Yep. But you know what's really funny about Burnley's manager who got sacked, right?
That he's gone to Bayern now?
I mean, is that true?
I think so.
How does that work? Like, yeah, fine, company can't do wonders, but it's probably one of the first few times I've ever heard that happen where a manager does not so well, gets sacked and goes to a team that needs help for sure, but is pretty much one of the top teams in the world. So,
I mean, yeah, but I think Bayern are looking for like a young attacking manager who's like exciting, and company might represent that. And he's cheap, and we're going to come on to that in a later topic for a different club. But yeah, I think with the expectations placed on them, I think Burnley has to be an F as well. Like, do you agree?
I agree. We can move on very swiftly.
Yeah. So third from the bottom, we got Luton. Now, I'm going to try and make a case, and I don't know if you disagree. I think Luton, having the least expectations coming out of the Championship, did really well. They only just missed out, and obviously the people who around them did get points deductions and everything. But that's what fairness means, right? But they gave it a good go, and I mean, at the end they were still far away from being out of relegation. But I think they had fun this season, and we're going to come back to this when we discuss my team.
I think they deserve better, Luton. I think they deserve to stay up, in my opinion. They had a very, very strong, from what I remember, start to the season. Like in terms of a team getting promoted. I'm not telling you that they're winning every game, but
they made it competitive, and they scored a lot, didn't they?
And they had half of these, like they had Barkley, they had all these like Premier League names, right? They had played. Some of these players had played in the Premier League already, right?
Yeah, like it was their defense that let them down, because they scored 52, which puts them it's more than the next couple of teams have all scored, So I would give them a D, to be charitable. I'd give them a D. They still got relegated, but they had fun,
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go people who narrowly escaped, the Great Escape artists. Nottingham Forest is the first of them at 17th. What do we think about Nottingham? I must admit I don't know too much about Nottingham.
I didn't watch them too much, but I know last season they were actually much better placed in the Premier League. So this season they escaped, but that's a big win for them. Any team that escapes through and stays in the Premier League, that's a lot of money kept.
And at the end of the day, the points deduction didn't really do them much harm. They'd have been 36 points without the points deduction, so they'd have been still where they are, just closer. I think, but survival, I think they were one of those who were really close to being relegated. And out of all the teams left, I think I'll give them a C maybe for surviving.
Yeah. Moving on to Brentford. The Brentford's a really interesting one because I feel like ever since they lost Tony, they've really started to lose. And even when he came back, he definitely had helped Brentford, but not as much as they probably would have hoped. So he did lose a bit of his form, but he was out for a while, right? So I would say I'm glad Brentford stayed up, and they're not far from my house. So
Yeah, I mean, you know, don't get docs. But I don't know, but I feel like with how well they did the previous season, I think this is a far fall from grace, and I feel like they don't have a lot to look forward to.
they had a lot of injuries. That's the thing. I watched them a little bit. They had a lot of injuries. They lost.
But that's
their
every
out
team.
and out.
No?
Well, yeah, I know, but with Brentford, they haven't got anyone to replace them at all. Like you're looking at not Premier League level players to replace them.
Fair. That's fair.
At least with the topper teams, you're looking at still Premier League level players replacing them, so they can still pull out victories.
Where are you placing them?
Same as Nottingham Forest, I would say.
Really, I'll concede it to you. I would have given them a D personally, but I'll fight for a different team later. Now Everton. Now
Everton's a very interesting one actually because they've been docked a huge amount of points. Then they got some given back. And
so
then I think
if they would have been in 12th position without the points deduction. Given that, and given their season and the injuries they got and everything, and they've made a young star out of Branthwaite, like a future England centre back star, I think.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to give them I'm inclined to give them a B, to be honest. Like,
I would say so because they not only stopped Liverpool's chance.
oh yeah, and that's actually a good point, Julian. That's a good point. Stopping your rivals doing something, and we'll come back to that. Stopping your rivals doing something, very important, very key to a season.
Different because they didn't do it to Arsenal, did they?
Okay, very different because they had to win to ruin Klopp's final season. But I mean, by that point, his season was already ruined, anyways.
But at the same time, I also would put Everton at a B because they were winning a lot of games towards the end of the season, which is what they needed because of the point deductions. Because at one point they were very close to the bottom.
And you know what? To be honest, I think they had one key thing that a lot of the bottom teams don't have, which will stand them in good stead, which is they didn't concede that many goals. They didn't score any. But there are loads of like strikers and forwards in the market. There's not a lot of good centre backs, and definitely not a lot of good defenses that you can put together in the summer transfer window, like quickly. So Everton a B. Okay, let's move on. Wolves. Now they fell off towards the end, but I think Wolves, I would give them a good season. They were pipped to be one of the teams to be relegated, and they were safe with loads of games to spare.
Mm-hmm.
They beat City.
The last 5 games, it did look like they were going downhill substantially. And one of the same teams, like if you get more losses than wins, I don't know if you can count that as a good season. Like,
but they weren't expected to win that many, and one of their wins was against they did really well against the Big Six, didn't they?
Possibly. Maybe City they beat, but they didn't beat anyone else from what I remember.
Are you going to say C?
I would say C, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Fine. Next is Fulham. Now, I don't know. I think, again, this is like kind of a mid-team. Like, they had a really good last season, and then this season they sort of fell off quite significantly. They're on the bottom half of the table. But they sort of got along. They beat Man United, I think, recently. Like, I think
also, like we beat them badly on the second game that we played, but we lost 2 games before the winter break, right? And one of them was to Fulham, that being Arsenal. We lost to West Ham and Fulham 2 in a row, and then we came back from the American break, right? And we won like almost every game. But that could also be something that Arsenal could look at. Fulham stopping us from winning the title eventually, so it definitely wasn't Aston Villa. I would say it was the Fulham and the West Ham games that.
Would you say middle of the table, C season kind of?
I would say C is a good one. Yeah.
You're gonna find, guys, that mid-table, they're gonna be mid-table, it's in the name. Next, Bournemouth. Again, I think they've had a decent season.
Why don't we group Bournemouth Brighton and Crystal Palace kind of all in one. They got very similar points. They've got, I was going to say very similar goal difference, but not necessarily from what I could see here.
Well, actually, I'm gonna disagree with you there because I
Yeah.
think Brighton actually had a pretty shit season. I feel like
had another good start, right?
they had a good start and then they fell off massively. They got injuries to Mitoma and whatever. They had like a decent run in the Conference League, but ultimately they've ended up in the bottom half of the table from European football. So that's like a huge drop. They've just lost their manager in the Serbi, like they've just fired him, or he's just left. So I don't know. I think I'm putting into context everything that's happened in the news as well, and I'm a bit uncertain about what, like, Brighton have done good business as a club. They've sold Caicedo, they sold McAllister for huge amounts of money, but whenever you do that, you're going to struggle to replace them, and I think this is one of those seasons where, and next season is going to be the same, like depending on how the transfer window goes and what manager they pick. That, like, you know, I feel like they had a D season. Next season they might go up to a B season, but I would give them a D this season personally.
Yeah, let's go with that. I think that's a good sort of. I think, yeah.
And also, I'm going to disagree with you. I think Crystal Palace did really well.
You reckon? Yeah.
Look at the end of their season. They smashed Spurs and they smashed like Aston Villa 5-0 on the final day, didn't they?
Well, they had nothing to play for, so I think that was slightly different. But United, I think they smashed United as well.
But like their new managers like almost gone unbeaten basically since he's taken over. Like they've got a lot to look forward to.
4-0 smashing of United. Okay.
Yeah, and United, like mate, they're like on, like that's a good way to go into the summer window. I would think a B really. They've got a manager in place that's quite good. They've got a lot of young talent. They're gonna generate. They've got a lot of assets, right? They've got Eze and Olise, which a lot of like the top clubs want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you sell one or both of them, you're gonna have a lot of transfer capital to sort of bolster your squad. Perhaps like try to sneak and fight for like a European, like 7th place European Conference League position. Don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
So I would give them a B. Would you think B?
I think a B is a good place for them. Sure.
Fine. Right, now we're moving up to the top half of the table, or like deeper into the top half of the table. So West Ham. So they end up 9th. They're sort of kind of nowhere.
They handed the title to City. Thank you very much.
Are you gonna dock them a position for that?
I will most certainly.
Cool.
To be
Fine.
honest, they tried their best, but they're playing against a world-class team. So.
Yeah, I mean they did. I think they did okay for having lost their marquee player.
I mean,
They
it
lost.
was 2-1 at one point.
Yeah, I mean then it was 3-1. So, but you know they lost Rice and gave them to you. They had.
You know what the West
silverware.
Ham fans was? Do you know what the West Ham fans were singing?
What?
Not only were they singing "Are you watching Arsenal?"
Just like Spurs.
just like Spurs, which is actually phenomenal. They were also singing stuff about Rice and how Rice chose to go to the wrong club, and I'm like, bro, where are you guys sitting? We've been on top for a long time. West Ham
I don't know. I think they got. I would give them mid-table C really. I think.
Okay.
What do you think, or would you want to go lower?
No, I mean I would like to go lower if I'm perfectly honest. I would say a D.
D. Fine. I'll give you D because they cost you the league. Right. Next is is it Man United next?
Oh, I never knew they were that low.
Well, yeah, it's United, mate. They had a terrible. I'm gonna say F.
Yeah.
Like they have a chance to redeem it. I think if they win the FA Cup, this goes up instantly to at least a C, maybe a B.
I would say so because it's against the Premier League champions, right? So
Yeah,
it's a big
and
game.
it would get them the Europa League position, right, or a Conference League position.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Not bad.
So but currently, as things stand, there's no argument. It's an F from me. I'm sorry. Like you were like towards the latter third of the season or latter quarter of the season, with about 8 games, you were pushing for potentially 5th or 4th place, and you're 8th. And I think if he doesn't win the FA Cup, he gets sacked.
I think so too.
Right. Next is Newcastle. I mean, they've ended the season relatively strong. They had a really bad middle of the season. But I think ending 7th above United, no European football, bit of uncertainty. I think a lot of their stars are leaving this summer. I don't know. I'm feeling a D here.
Yeah, I genuinely think that's about right. I think you make a good point there. I would say D. I don't think I'll do it.
Right, and now we're on to the big six, other than United. So, in 6th position, Chelsea. Despite how poor they did throughout the season and how much we took the piss out of them, they still ended up 6th. They've got European football. They sacked their manager.
They really turned it around. They won they didn't lose a game in the last six Premier League games, which is quite crazy. That's the type of
they've gone on a 6-win streak. I think. Look, what's happened since the end of the season, I think puts them at an F, despite this. But if we're talking about the season, I'll give them a C.
I personally would actually say they should be on the same level as Tottenham. The fact that they were able to catch Tottenham with only 3 points difference is absolutely
okay.
disgusting.
But we're gonna come into it, Julian. I don't think you should rate them that highly because one of our talking topics is coming up. I would say we put them at a C.
Yeah, no, I would say C as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to say that Spurs deserve a B.
Because I'm going to say Spurs deserve a C because of how they ended the season.
Okay.
If it wasn't for that.
Okay, but we have to remember the season though. This is a season as a whole, right? And I would say coming out of the summer transfer window, having lost Kane and with a new manager who's never managed in the Premier League, we had parts of the season where we were on top of the league. Right?
Yeah.
As a whole season, I think we deserve a B. Just because, come on, we lost Kane, our top goal scorer, but we still are 5th position. We've got Europa League, and this is gonna sound like, me trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, but I genuinely think Europa League is the better competition for us to be in next season, because we're not ready for the Champions League, basically.
I totally agree.
So I would say B.
The only two things that really stand out for me here is the fact that how Chelsea is as close as they are to Tottenham. That's one thing. And the other thing is, towards the end, Aston Villa was handing you that 4th place, and you guys didn't take advantage of that. The amount of times they lost, and you lost as well on the same weekend, when you could have just won.
I would say
it would have been so much easier to secure that 4th place. And look how close you guys were in the end.
Yeah, in the end, I think I agree with you. But
what disappointed. That was what disappointed.
As the resident Spurs fan, I'm going to give ourselves a B. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I won't.
Now, I think Aston Villa, you have to give them an A. Their offer, A for amazing. They've come in, they've got smart transfer policy, they've got equal wage bills to Spurs, they've got Champions League football at Aston Villa, with a manager famous for being good at European competitions in Unai Emery.
Not the one that he just played in, though.
Not the one he's just played in, but he still made a relatively decent run.
Yeah.
And and that's a good point, right? So he's had a season where he's had to balance European fixtures with league fixtures. Okay, he lost the final day, but he's got ultimately he's got Champions League football to Villa.
To play Champions League football than Tottenham is.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna give them an A, and then let's move on to Liverpool. I think, sorry to our friend Mo, but at best I can only really give you a B.
I think that's a good rating. I don't think we can give them any higher than that. They fell off towards the end of the season, but at the same time, clearly for the reasons that we know why they fell off, right? But even when they did have their team back, the team came back, it seemed like the team before that was their B team seemed to perform better at times. which is
Yeah.
peculiar.
So I think they had a weak end to the season. They started it off by we're not gonna forget. I might even downgrade them to a C, to be honest. Like
You
for
reckon?
Klopp's final season, having only won a Carling Cup, and then being smashed at home by the eventual winners, to be fair, in Atalanta, um, out of the Europa League, and then to be okay, this is how I'm gonna phrase this, okay, and I'm gonna try and make this might be a short actually, like Liverpool fans. I'm gonna say this season actually is at best a C and might even be an F. And the reason it might be an F for you guys is, firstly, you guys don't really care about the Carling Cup. Let's be honest, you don't care. Number one. Number two, you've given all your rival clubs something to hold over you guys for Klopp's final season. Manchester United kicked you out of the FA Cup in shit form, okay? Everton ends your season at your home with their first win in who knows how long, right? Those are your two biggest rivals, and your biggest rivals per se in Man City win the league. Like, how is this not an F season for you guys? I'ma say F. Actually, you know what? I'm revising. Okay, to be okay.
You skipped D, bro.
Okay, yeah. I'm trying to like make a clip, but to be honest, I think it all evens out. You win a Carling Cup, we'll give you a D. What do you think?
Fine. Like I was gonna say a C, but because the thing is, it was a 3-horse race, right? So I think you should give him a C, and it was one of the best seasons in terms of like how tight it was with the 3 teams up until, let's say, game 33.
Yeah.
Or 4. So I would say a C. I wouldn't say D.
Yeah. I mean, I was just making a clip, to be honest,
Yeah.
but just to like, you know, what unfortunately YouTube algorithm rewards negativity, as we found out from our TikTok. So anyways, I'll try. Do you think we should make that into a short? We'll make that into a short. Okay, and the last 2 teams, we'll go with the champions first. I think this is going to be an A. I think that's, you know what, it has to be an A. It has to be an A even if I want to put it as a B. Doesn't it? It just has to be an A.
Well, the thing is, they could have very, very easily got to the Champions League final. They always play the best teams, right? And they only just got beaten, right? So, and I would say they looked the better side against Real Madrid. So I wouldn't say this was a bad season. If you get beaten by the 14-time holders, potentially, well, they're in the final, and potentially 15-time holders, right? You ain't done bad, right? Also, they're in the final of the FA Cup, which I'm pretty sure they're going to win, in my opinion. They won the Premier League, so that's 2 cups, right?
Yeah, and
So,
they've done something historic. They're the first ever team to win
Exactly.
it 4 in a row.
exactly.
I
And the
mean,
thing
when
is,
the 115 charges come in, maybe not so much,
we'll
but
think differently, yeah. I would say this was still not to the same level as their treble season, but it could have very easily been a treble.
trouble. Yeah,
It could have very easily,
Yeah.
but it was because of Real Madrid. I think if it wasn't for Real Madrid, I think they would beat Dortmund, in my opinion. But I wouldn't want that to happen. So, yeah.
and then finally, your club. Where are you rating your club?
So in terms of progression and how we've moved forward, this is the most wins we've ever had in the Premier League ever. The highest, in terms of like progression, it's the best progression we've made under Arteta. Every single year we've taken a step forward. Last season, yes, we finished second, but most importantly, we finished with more points and we took the champions to the last game of the season. So it's an improvement after an improvement after an improvement. We did also invest in good players. We clearly know where we're missing out. We could have very easily could have won the Premier League this season, in my opinion, and we would have been deserving champions, right? But with a team like City, who seem to just somehow, no matter what happens, they just do enough. Literally, they just do enough when it comes to the Premier League to win, and that is just another level which Arsenal are not necessarily there just yet. But if you take City out of the picture, then it would be very different. But we wouldn't do such a thing like that. But I would say I had to give them an A. They had a really great season overall. We only lost 1 game in 2024.
I'm umming and ahhing about giving you an A or B. I think like I would like an A minus if I could, because I feel like you guys, you're right. I think you had a great season, and unlike last season, like you showed heart, you stuck in there, and you pushed City probably at like you're the new Liverpool basically as the City rival. There's decent narratives. I think you've got a good squad. I think ultimately that Villa win did hurt you more than you might think it would have. And I think a couple of draws might have hurt you.
I think that Villa game didn't really hurt us because we went on to continually win after that. I would say the 2 games before the break in the summer, that's what hurt us. And we shouldn't have lost those games because we battered West Ham 6-0 and we also beat Fulham. Like, how can you lose 2-1 to Fulham and 2-1 to West Ham, right? And then batter them later on. Like, we clearly were in a different headspace, and usually if we have a really good first half to the season, we have an absolutely crap second half to the season. And I'm not saying the first half of the season was bad, but compared to our recent standards, it's usually better. And we've never had a second season like that ever in Arsenal's history. You don't win that many games. But the fact that we won that many games and we still lost just means that it is what it is. So yeah, I would say A. I don't think A minus. No.
Fine, I'll give you an A. So
because we didn't bottle it. Like, look, come on, goal difference.
yeah, okay, fine. You know what? You gave me a B for my team, despite probably it be deserving a C. I'll give you an A for your season.
Respect.
Okay, so that ends our tier list. I'm going to pause it there for a second on the recording. You guys aren't going to see this, and you're just going to see the next part of the video. So